Hello, this is Mike Dell from Blubrry Podcasting, and today, or in this video, we're going to show you the Apple tab in PowerPress settings. That's all the settings for Apple Podcasts. So go to the back end of your site, go to PowerPress and Settings, and in the tabs up here, click the Apple one. And this is all the settings that you're going to need for Apple Podcasts and other directories. Some other directories use some of this stuff. In fact, a lot of them do. So this is very important that you get this the way you should. So the first thing you're going to see is the subtitle. Subtitle can be exactly the same thing you put back in the feed description box in the Feeds tab. So if we go to the Feeds tab here, we can see that we put in a description here. We can copy that exact description and then go back up to the Apple tab and we can paste that in the subtitle. The iTunes program summary can also be exactly the same thing, but you can have a little bit longer description in there if you want to. The thing is that this box, and the feed description, none of those show up at the same place at the same time. Some apps use this, some apps use that, some apps use the Feeds tab description. So you can have the same thing in all three. Just know that it's 255 characters in the two smaller ones, and this one can be up to 4,000. These checkboxes here, wrap, summary, and CData tags, and optimize iTunes summary with blog posts. I leave those off. The iTunes summary can be, could be just your blog post, and it kind of does that automatically, so you're good. iTunes category, this first one right here, is the only one that your podcast will actually be in. Now, you can set two more. So we're going to call this education. Actually, education how-to, because I'm showing you how to do something. The other categories, you can also pick, two other categories. This is just a suggestion to the Apple team if they want to manually feature you in a different category. But it's not guaranteed that you're going to be in those categories, or chances are you won't be. This will be the most important and only one that you're going to, for sure, be in over at Apple. And this also works for many, many other directories and apps. So set that something that's close to appropriate. iTunes explicit. This must be set to either yes, explicit content, or clean, no explicit content. I don't plan on throwing any F-bombs here, so we'll call it clean. iTunes author name. That is exactly what it says. It's a name, not a bunch of keywords, not the same name as your podcast. That looks silly. It comes up as Underwater Basket Weaving Podcast as Underwater Basket Weaving Podcast, or by Underwater Basket Weaving Podcast. So the by line in Apple Podcasts and many other directories is going to be what you type in here. So type a name in here. You can have a couple of names, or you could have a company name if that company name does not exactly match your title of the overall podcast, because that looks silly as well. So don't do that. So a name goes in here. No keyword stuffing. Apple will kick you out. Trust me. iTunes email. That is an email that you actually check. It does not have to be your Apple ID email if you don't want it to be. This is just an email that actually gets checked. That is how Apple and all the other places that you submit your podcast to are going to get a hold of you if they have an issue with your listing. So make sure that's one that you actually check, and you'll be good to go. iTunes type, no option selected, is the best way. If you want to select something, select episodic. Do not select serial. Serial is for a specific type of podcast that 99.9% of you are not going to be doing. So just leave it either no option selected or episodic. And the set iTunes new feed URL, don't do anything with that unless you absolutely know what you're doing. Contact us if you think you need that, but I don't think you do. So don't touch it. These two things down here, don't touch, because that means you're going to stop podcasting. So if you hit the iTunes block, iTunes will throw you out of the store, because that's what it's doing. And you don't want to block it because you can't unblock it. There's other ways to prevent it from getting into Apple that aren't permanent. This one's permanent. Don't do it. iTunes Complete, same thing. It'll quit pulling your feed. It'll leave it in the directory, but it'll quit pulling your feed. So don't mess with it. In other words, anything below iTunes type, don't mess with in these settings unless you've contacted support and you do actually need to do that. And of course, you can contact support by emailing support@blubrry.com or going to blubrry.com/contact and put in a ticket. If you're logged in, we'll get all the information about your podcast, be able to answer you quicker. That is the Apple tab. Hit Save Changes.